Hi and welcome to my channel. Today we'll be discussing this. It's a pocket and the topic is periodontal pocket. Someone has rightly named it pocket as it is a space in which everything and anything can get accumulated. Without any further delay, let's jump into the topic periodontal pocket. What is periodontal pocket? It's basically pathological deepened gingival sulcus. Gingival sulcus is basically a space around the tooth bonded on one side by the tooth surface and the other is by the epithelial lining of the free margin of gingiva. So this space, which is initially supposed to be 2 mm, increases to about 5 mm, and this becomes your periodontal pocket. So basically a sulcus grows downwards or deepens apically to become a pocket. Next, is important to understand the periodontal pocket is a clinical feature and periodontitis is the disease. Like in the current situation, cold, cough, fever, wheezing, etc. are the clinical features of the disease COVID-19. Reason for pocket formation are two. First is the coronal movement of your gingival margin, and second is the apical migration or apical movement of your gingival attachment or junctional epithelium. Or it can be a combination of these two. So based on that, there are two types of pocket: gingival pseudo, false or relative pocket, or the other type of pocket is your periodontal true or actual pocket. Gingival pocket or the false pocket is caused because of the coronal movement of your gingival margin. It is usually seen during gingival enlargement and there is no destruction of your supporting periodontal tissue or your alveolar bone. Whereas in case of your true pocket, there is an apical movement of your gingival attachment or gingival apparatus, and there is an actual supporting tissue loss in this case, and that is why when the supporting tissue reduces, the tooth becomes more mobile and has a tendency to exfoliate. Closely look at the diagram. Now this is your normal sulcus. Okay, it is slightly above your CEJ, whereas in case of your gingival enlargement or your pseudo pocket, you have your gingival margin going more coronal, and in case of your actual pocket, your gingival margin remains same, increases or decreases, but the main difference is because of the downward or apical movement of your junctional epithelium. Now whenever we are talking about pocket, it's going to be periodontal pocket. So periodontal pocket are further classified into various types. First classification is based on the relationship between the base of your pocket and the crest of the bone, and they are divided into two types: suprabony and intrabony. Suprabony has various other names like supraalveolar, supracrestal. Remember the mnemonic A, B, C. Intrabony has different names like infrabony, intraalveolar and subcrestal. Now there are four differentiating factors which basically differentiates the infrabony and suprabony pocket. So the first one is the relationship of the base of your pocket to the crest of your remaining alveolar bone. Base of the pocket and crest of the remaining alveolar bone. Base of the pocket, crest of the remaining alveolar bone. As you can see clearly in the diagram, the base of your pocket is coronal to that of your crest of your remaining alveolar bone, and over here it is apical. The base of the pocket is apical to the crest of the alveolar bone. Now I would like to insist over here to use the terminology base of the pocket and crest of the alveolar bone because it's very important for clear understanding. Next is the pattern of bone destruction. In case of your suprabony pocket, the pattern of bone destruction which can be seen is more horizontal, whereas in case of your infrabony pocket, the pattern is angular. Next is the direction of your transseptal fibers. Now transseptal fibers have a very unique property. They tend to regenerate very fast after any disease or any other surgical procedure. So the transseptal fibers, they run horizontally, okay, over the interproximal bone in case of your suprabony pocket, and in case of your infrabony pocket, they have to move from below the junctional epithelium upwards or coronally to pass or move around the interproximal bone and get attached to the adjacent tooth. Similarly, when it comes to the periodontal ligament on the facial and the lingual aspect, they tend to move more horizontal or obliquely, which is the normal direction in case of your suprabony pocket. Whereas in case of infrabony pocket, again they have to move from below the junctional epithelium coronally, move around the crest of your alveolar bone and then get inserted into the periosteum. Second classification is according to the involved tooth surface. So they are classified into simple, compound and complex. Simple is when one tooth surface is involved, compound is when two or more tooth surfaces are involved, and complex is a spiral in which the pocket goes around the tooth. What do I mean by that is the base of your pocket is not in continuation with the entrance of the pocket. So once you enter the pocket, the base of the pocket will be in a different plane altogether. It is usually seen around furcation area. The next is according to the clinical appearance of the pocket. There are two types, edematous and fibrotic. We'll get into this later. Next is according to the disease activity, active pocket and inactive pocket. The clinical features of periodontal pocket, signs are what the doctor observes and they are mentioned as we write the case history. Color of the gingiva is bluish pink, the marginal gingiva, and this can extend vertically downwards into the attached gingiva in case of deep pocket. The contour of the gingiva is rounded marginal gingiva, and in the interdental area, the buccolingual continuity of your interdental gingiva is lost. Consistency is soft and edematous. Size is enlarged. Surface texture is smooth and shiny, and there is loss of stippling. Pus exudate may or may not be seen. Bleeding is mostly present. Because of the loss of your supporting tissue, there is mobility, extrusion and migration of the teeth, and there can be presence of diastema which was not earlier present. About the symptoms of periodontal pocket, there is localized pain or a sensation of pressure after eating food, and it gradually diminishes. Because the food getting stuck in the pocket area, there can be foul taste and smell, gnawing feeling or itching feeling in the gingiva, and there is an urge to dig. So the patient complains of taking a sharp instrument and inserting into the interdental gingiva till the area starts bleeding. Once it starts bleeding, the pain is relieved. Food getting sucked into the interdental area, radiating bone pain, tooth feeling loose because of the increased mobility because of the loss of periodontal supporting tissue. Sensitivity to heat and cold because of the exposure of your cementum, and toothache without any caries. Next is the examination. The only reliable method to examine a periodontal pocket is by using a probe. Pocket depth is basically the measurement from the crest of your gingival margin to the base of your pocket. There are two types of pocket depth, biologic and clinical. Biologic or histological depth, in which a section of tooth and gingiva are placed under the microscope and the measurement is done under the microscope. This is more accurate. However, it is a more invasive procedure and that is why not commonly used. Next is the clinical or probing depth, in which a calibrated probe is inserted into the gingiva till one feels resistance, and the marking which coincides with the gingival margin is taken as the reading for your pocket depth. Now there are various factors on which this pocket depth or probing depth is dependent. That is the pressure and force of introduction. More the pressure, less the resistance you will feel, and that is why the insertion of the probe will be beyond your junctional epithelium. Next is the shape and size of your probe. If your probe is of a wider diameter, it will not reach the base of the pocket, and if it is of a thinner diameter, like in case of like a needle, then it will get inserted into tissue without much resistance. Direction of insertion. The angular insertion of your probe will give a different reading as compared to that when you enter the probe parallel to the long axis of the tooth. Next is the resistance of the tissue. If the tissue is more resilient, then you will have a different reading as compared to that if the tissue is very fragile. Or if there is any presence of any calculus in the pocket area, again you will have a lot of resistance while inserting the probe, which will lead to a different reading. Convexity of the crown. When the crown is more convex, it will lead to a different reading as compared to that of a less convex crown. Degree of inflammation. When the tissue is more inflamed, the resistance of the tissue reduces, and that is why the probe gets inserted beyond your junctional epithelium into the connective tissue. Now, after scaling and root planing, what happens is that the degree of inflammation reduces and the probe does not enter into the junctional epithelium, leading to a false sense of gain in clinical attachment. However, this is just because of the reduced degree of inflammation. The method of using the periodontal probe is also known as walking of the probe, in which the probe is introduced parallel to the long axis of the tooth and walked circumferentially, because the probing depth around the same tooth will not be same. So you have to walk the probe circumferentially to understand the deepest part of the pocket. Now, special attention is given to craters which are present interdentally, and to assess the crater you have to introduce the probe with slight angulation from facial and lingual direction both, to understand the interdental topography. And in the furcation area you are supposed to use a neighbor's probe. Now, radiographs are not a very reliable method as pocket is a soft tissue change. However, one can use some radio opaque materials like gutta percha or calibrated silver points. They are inserted into the pocket and then a radiograph is taken. This will help assess the pace of the pocket, and the individual pocket can be studied by using this method, and also it can be used for clinical research. However, it cannot be used for full mouth examination. One can appreciate the pattern of bone loss and thus can assess the type of pockets which can be present. For example, if there is an angular bone loss around the tooth, it can be assumed that there would be a intrabony pocket. Talking about the pathogenesis of periodontal pocket is always preceded by gingival inflammation, which is caused because of your bacterial accumulation. So, gingivitis is always present before it turns into periodontitis. In healthy gingiva, you have commensal bacteria. In case of gingivitis, you have predominance of gram-positive aerobic bacteria, and which shift towards gram-negative anaerobic bacteria in case of your periodontitis. It was initially thought that the bacteria alone were enough to cause periodontal pocket. However, the current studies have shown that it is the interaction between the bacteria and the host immune system which causes the formation of pocket. And this is the reason why not all gingivitis cases transform into periodontitis. Now, this bacteria sends in noxious stimulus into the connective tissue, adjacent connective tissue of your gingiva, and causes inflammatory changes in the connective tissue. The blood vessels become engorged, dilated, and increase in number, and causes inflammatory changes, that is cellular and fluid inflammatory changes into the adjacent connective tissue. This inflammatory changes causes breakdown of collagen fibers, especially the ones which are just below your junctional epithelium. The breakdown of collagen fibers are caused because of two reasons. Number one is collagenase enzyme. This collagenase enzyme is secreted by the bacteria, and it is also secreted by our immune system by various cells like fibroblasts, macrophages, etc. Besides collagenases, you have other matrix metalloproteinases also, which causes this destruction of connective tissue. The second reason is the fibroblast. The fibroblasts which are present along your cementum, they send out a cytoplasmic extension into the adjacent area, and they start engulfing or start phagocytosis of the adjacent collagen fibers or Scheimpf's fibers which are present. This causes the breakdown of your collagen fibers, especially just below your junctional epithelium. Next, you have the PMNs which are present in abundance in the connective tissue. They are chemically attracted towards the bacteria. This process is known as chemotaxis. They are attracted towards the bacteria and they move from connective tissue through the junctional epithelium into the sulcus space, which leads to increased pressure on the junctional epithelium. Next, you have the increased cellular exudate which is present in the connective tissue. Now, the PMNs, they are chemically attracted towards the bacteria. So, this process is known as chemotaxis. So, the PMNs, they move from the connective tissue into the epithelium, into the sulcus area, and start fighting off the bacteria, or they prevent. Next is the increased number of PMNs in the connective tissue. They are chemically attracted towards the bacteria. So, they move from the connective tissue into the junctional epithelium and enter the sulcus area and start fighting the bacteria which is present in the sulcus. This increases the pressure on the junctional epithelium because of the volume of your PMNs which is present in the sulcus area. The volume of your junctional epithelium. Now, as you can see, because of the destruction of your collagen fibers and increase in volume of your PMNs above, the pressure has increased. However, the support has reduced. And this causes a finger-like projection of your junctional epithelium along the root surface downwards or apically. As the volume of your PMNs increase more than 60%, there is a breakdown which is seen on the coronal aspect and your junctional epithelium moves apically. Also, some studies have shown that there can be an intraepithelial cleft which can be seen, which causes the shift of junctional epithelium more apically. One thing to remember is that for the junctional epithelium to move apically, these cells of junctional epithelium need to be viable. If there is necrosis of this cell, like in case of acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis, then this shift is not possible and there is no pocket formation. As and how the pocket deepens, you have more and more plaque accumulation which can be seen, and this plaque becomes difficult to clean, and that is why it becomes a vicious circle. The plaque accumulation begins, causes the pocket formation, which leads to further plaque accumulation, which leads to further pocket formation. This is a very beautiful histological picture in which one can appreciate the breakdown of collagen fibers just below the junctional epithelium. There should be PMNs present over here in the sulcus area, but one can appreciate the finger-like projection over here of your junctional epithelium. As you can see, there is a lot of cellular and fluid infiltration into the connective tissue. Let's talk about the histopathological change of your pocket. Now, this is divided into two main headings: soft tissue wall changes and your root surface changes. Now, in your soft tissue wall, one has to discuss the changes in the connective tissue as well as the epithelium. And as epithelium histologically is divided into three types, that is your junctional, sulcular and outer. Similarly, when you are discussing the pocket, we have to discuss all three types of epithelium. In connective tissue, as we've discussed, it is densely infiltrated with your leukocytes. Blood vessels are engorged, increased and dilated. You have degenerated changes in your connective tissue which are seen as foci of necrosis. Besides the degenerative changes, your body also has a tendency to repair itself, and you can see some proliferative changes also into the connective tissue, which is in form of increased number of new endothelial cells which causes formation of new blood vessels, fibroblast, and also there is formation of collagen fibers. In the junctional epithelium, you can see that there are shorter. The junctional epithelium width is shorter than normal sulcus depth, and it measures to around 50 to 100 micrometers. The cells mostly are in good condition. As I said earlier, you need viable cells for junctional epithelium to cause pocket formation, but sometimes you do see degenerative changes, and during this time there is no shift of your epithelium. The lateral wall changes, this are the most severe degenerative change. In the junctional epithelium, you see the width becomes shorter than the normal sulcus, and the cells are mostly in good condition. However, sometimes you do see some degenerative changes. Whenever there is degeneration of the junctional epithelium, there is no further pocket formation till the cells become viable. Lateral wall of pocket shows the most severe degenerative changes. There is epithelial buds and interlacing cords of epithelium which project into the connective tissue, and they can even move further apically than the junctional epithelium. As mentioned earlier, from the connective tissue cells, the PMNs, they infiltrate into the epithelium. So this change is also seen in the lateral wall of pocket, and the cells, that is the epithelial cells, they show vacuolar degeneration and rupture to form vesicles. Sometimes the epithelium is completely lost in certain area of pocket. This is shown as ulceration, which causes the exposure of your connective tissue, and the severity of your changes or degeneration is not related to the pocket depth. What you mean by that is that even in shallow pocket you can have severe changes along the lateral wall, and in case of deep pocket also you may not see so much degeneration along the lateral wall of the pocket. So it is independent of the depth of the pocket. In this picture, you can appreciate the budding and the interlacing of your connective tissue into the epithelium. This picture you can appreciate that there is ulceration along the epithelium and it causes the exposure of your connective tissue. Also, one can appreciate the dense infiltration into the connective tissue as well as into the epithelium. The outer or the crest of your gingival epithelium is usually intact, thickened with prominent red apex. Bacterial invasion is seen in the apical and the lateral area of the pocket. That means the bacteria enters into the gingiva. Sometimes they are confined into the epithelium, sometimes they reach the basement membrane, sometimes they enter into the connective tissue. Now, most of the bacteria which are seen in the connective tissue are your P. gingivalis, that is Porphyromonas gingivalis, Actinomyces, Actinomycetum comitans, Prevotella intermedia. Next is the microtopography of your gingival wall. A scanning electron microscope is used to examine the surface of your gingival wall, and they have seen certain areas or certain changes in the gingival wall. They are usually ovoid or elongated areas and they measure around 50 to 200 micrometers. This area they constantly keep changing. Now the reason for this is that the pocket wall is never constant. There is sometimes regeneration, sometimes repair going on simultaneously. So this area keeps on changing. First is the area of relative quiescence. This means that there is not much activity going on. The epithelium seems to be very flat and smooth. Next is the area of bacterial accumulation, in which clumps of bacteria are seen above the epithelium. Area of emergence of leukocyte. There are tiny holes which are seen in the surface, and from there is emergence of the leukocyte. Next is area of leukocyte and bacterial interaction, in which the bacteria and leukocyte are interacting. Number of leukocyte surround the bacteria, and there is phagocytosis which is appreciated in this area. Area of intense epithelial desquamation, in which the epithelial cells or the epithelial squamase are rapidly lifted and are moving into the sulcus area. Next is the area of ulceration, where the epithelium is completely denuded and one can appreciate the underlying connective tissue. Area of hemorrhage, in which red blood cells are appreciated. Now, as you can see, these areas are in a very sequential manner. That is, first, there is no activity going on, which changes when there is bacterial accumulation. Because of the bacterial accumulation, you have entrance of your leukocyte. This entrance of leukocyte causes a fight between the leukocyte and your bacteria, which leads to intense epithelial desquamation, that is, the epithelium sheds off, which causes ulceration. And once there is ulceration, there is increased proximity to blood vessels, which leads to stage of hemorrhage. Periodontal pocket as a healing lesion. Periodontal pocket is constantly undergoing repair. So in case of any inflammation, your body is trying to repair itself constantly. So the interplay between the degeneration and proliferation is what is going to decide the clinical appearance of the pocket. However, complete healing of the periodontal pocket is not possible till there is complete eradication of your bacteria. There are two types of clinical appearance of the periodontal pocket, that is fibrotic and edematous. So it is very easy to understand the edematous pocket because it appears reddish blue, and there is edema, there is change in surface texture, everything. But in case of fibrotic pocket, it appears as good as your gingiva, a normal gingiva, and that is why fibrotic pocket wall can be misleading. There is inflammatory changes which are going on in the lateral wall of the pocket, and there is destruction along the lateral wall and in the junctional epithelium. However, it appears normal, and that is why it is not easy to diagnose a fibrotic pocket. Contents of the pocket include microorganisms and its byproducts, that is your endotoxins, enzymes, etc. Gingival crevicular fluid, food remnants, salivary mucin, desquamated epithelium, and leukocyte. It also contains pus, that is a purulent exudate which is formed because of the suppurative changes into the epithelium. Now, the presence of pus does not mean that the disease is very severe. It just means that the disease is currently in a very active situation or is showing more degenerative change, but it does not determine the pocket depth. What do I mean by that? Even a shallow pocket can have pus exudate and a deep pocket may not show any pus exudation. The root surface wall shows three types of changes: structural, chemical and cytotoxic. Structural changes are in form of three types again, that is presence of pathological granules. What I mean by pathologic granules is the remnants of your Sharpie's fibers which are seen along the root surface, or it can be in form of non-mineralized Sharpie's fibers which can also appear as pathologic granules. Then there is area of increased mineralization, because now this cementum is exposed to the salivary mucins and salivary contents. It causes increase in mineralization in certain areas of your root surface. However, in certain areas of root surface you have demineralization caused because of the acid attack of your bacteria, which causes formation of root caries. Next is the chemical change. Chemical change is nothing but the increase in the mineral content of your root surface. Fluoride increases, potassium, calcium, magnesium, etc. These all minerals that have the tendency to increase in your root surface. Cytotoxic change, you have your bacterial endotoxins which enter into the cementum, and this acts as a reservoir for destructive products even after removing of the plaque and calculus. Because of the cytotoxic changes and the structural changes on the root surface, it is recommended to do root planing, in which the soft cementum is completely scraped off from the root surface. As you can observe in this diagram, you can see the surface morphology along the root surface. First, there is a calculus layer. Along with it, there is attached plaque. In this, there is unattached plaque. This plaque is very dangerous. Next, you have junctional epithelium. Then you have partially lysed connective tissue fibers. If you've understood the pathogenesis, this diagram is not very difficult to understand. Next is periodontal disease activity. Now, already I have mentioned that the pocket, it has a tendency of repairing itself, and that is why there is a period of quiescence. There is not always destruction which is taking place, but sometimes there is healing which is predominant. So this time is called as period of quiescence or inactivity, and the otherwise it is called as period of exacerbation or activity. It is said that during period of quiescence there is a predominance of your gram-positive aerobic bacteria, which may last for some days or few weeks, and which shift when the shift takes place to a gram-negative anaerobic bacteria. During that time there will be bone loss and clinical attachment loss, whereas during quiescence there will be no bone loss or no clinical attachment loss. Next is the site specificity. As you all know, the pocket depth or presence of pocket or absence of pocket is not generalized to all teeth. Even in an individual tooth, there are certain areas which is more predominant, which shows a tendency of having pocket, and the other areas don't have tendency of showing pockets. So this is known as site specificity. Last is the correlation between the clinical features and the histological features of your pocket. This is very helpful from case history point of view also. When there is bluish red discoloration is seen when there is a circulatory stagnation, that is venous stagnation. Flaccidity, that means it is more pliable. It is seen because of the destruction of your gingival fibers and connective tissue. Smooth and shiny surface is seen because of the atrophy of your epithelium. Pitting on pressure is because of the edema and the degeneration into the connective tissue. Sometimes you have fibrotic change along the gingiva, and that is why the gingiva appears pink and firm. Next is bleeding on probing. This is because of increased vascularity, thinning and degeneration of your epithelium and proximity of your engorged blood vessels. Pain on tactile sensation, that is when you insert the probe into the pocket, patient elicitates pain. This is because of the ulceration which leads to direct contact to the connective tissue which has the nerve endings. Then there is pus exudation which can be seen because of suppurative inflammation. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. If you have any doubts, please leave them in the comment section. Which other lectures do you all want? Please write them in the comment section. And don't forget to like, read and remember.